Before we begin this incredible journey, I want to ask you something important. Have you ever received a call that changed your entire life? A moment when destiny knocked on your door disguised as an emergency? Today's story is about exactly that, about how a desperate phone call connected four broken hearts and transformed them forever. If you believe in second chances and the mysterious ways life brings people together, please hit that like button and drop a comment telling me, miracles. Your engagement means the world to me and helps this story reach others who need to hear it. Now let's dive into this emotional journey together. The September afternoon sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Brennan Industries, casting long shadows across the mahogany desk where 32-year-old Christopher Brennan sat reviewing acquisition reports. His tailored navy suit jacket hung on his chair, tie loosened after 12 consecutive hours of meetings. Boston sprawled below, a tapestry of steel and glass representing everything he'd built in the past decade. A technology empire worth $3 billion, constructed from nothing but ambition and relentless determination. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. Christopher normally ignored such calls, but something made him reach for it. Perhaps exhaustion dulling his usual protocols. Perhaps something deeper his rational mind couldn't explain. Christopher Brennan, he answered, voice carrying the clipped efficiency of a man who valued every second. For a moment, only ragged breathing, small and terrified. Then came a voice that would haunt him forever. A little girl no more than 6 years old, words tumbling out in panicked rushes. "Daddy, we just wanted leftovers. My sister got stuck. She's in the freezer, and I can't get her out, and Mommy's not here, and I don't know what to do, and..." The voice cracked into sobs. "Please, Daddy, please come home. She's so cold, please." Christopher's heart lurched. The word daddy hit like a physical blow. He had no children, never married. His life was algorithms and board meetings and sterile perfection. Yet this child was calling him, believing he was her father, begging with desperation that stripped away every defense he'd built. "Sweetheart, listen to me," he said, voice transforming into something soft, urgent, protective. "I'm coming right now. Can you tell me your address?" I don't know the whole thing." The little voice trembled. "It's 247 something. Mommy always says 247 Elmwood, the apartments with the red door." Elmwood Avenue. The old district near the harbor where paint peeled from buildings and dreams died slowly. 20 minutes from his office. Christopher grabbed his jacket, pulling up phone records with practiced efficiency. 247 Elmwood Avenue. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Mia," she whispered. "And my sister is Maya. We're twins. We turned 6 last month and Mommy made us a cake even though we didn't have much money, but she said birthdays are special and..." Another sob. "Please hurry. Maya's lips are turning purple." Purple lips, hypothermia. Minutes mattered. Seconds mattered. "Mia, I need you to be very brave for me. Can you hear Maya? Is she answering you?" "She's crying. She keeps saying she's cold. I tried to pull the door but it won't open and I'm 2 minutes away. Keep talking to her. Tell her help is coming. Tell her daddy's coming." The words felt strange, foreign, yet somehow essential. He burst through the lobby, sliding behind the wheel of his Tesla. The engine purred as he pulled into traffic with recklessness that would scandalize his board. Red lights became suggestions. Speed limits transformed into guidelines. All the while, he kept Mia on the line, voice steady even as his pulse hammered. "Tell me about Maya. What does she like?" "She likes purple and unicorns. And she's really good at drawing. Better than me. Mommy says we're both special, but Maya's the artist and I'm the resourceful one." "Resourceful is exactly right. You called for help. You stayed calm. That's incredibly brave, Mia. But I should have stopped her. She said she was hungry and I said we should wait for Mommy. But Maya said there were leftovers in the freezer and we didn't eat lunch because food stamps don't come until tomorrow and..." Food stamps, hunger, leftovers. The words painted a picture Christopher's privileged world rarely intersected with. A reality of scarcity, of a mother working so hard she forgot her phone, of children hungry enough to risk a freezer for scraps. You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all. You're helping her right now. That's what matters. He spotted the building, a 4-story walk-up with red doors, paint chipped like peeling skin. He screeched to a halt, taking front steps 3 at a time. "I'm here. Which apartment?" "3B, 3rd floor." The stairs groaned. Smells assaulted him. Cooking grease, mildew, something sour. He reached the 3rd floor, found 3B, pounded on the door. "Mia!" "It's me." "Open the door, sweetheart." Locks clicked. 1, 2, 3 separate bolts. The door swung open, revealing a little girl with tangled blonde hair and huge blue eyes, swimming with tears. She wore a faded pink jacket with a broken zipper, mismatched socks, and an expression of desperate hope that cracked something inside Christopher's carefully constructed walls. "You came," she breathed, grabbing his hand. "She's in the kitchen. The freezer door is stuck." Christopher followed through a tiny living room, threadbare couch, small television, toys in repurposed boxes. Everything spoke of poverty managed with dignity. The kitchen was barely large enough to turn around in. And there, wedged inside a chest freezer with the lid closed on her, sat another little girl, Mia's mirror image. Hands pressed against transparent section, face pale, lips tinged blue. "Maya!" Christopher dropped to his knees. The child's eyes locked on his, terrified, pleading. Something heavy had jammed the external latch. A broken chair leg wedged at an angle. "Okay, sweetheart, I've got you." He worked with focused intensity, calling 911 with one hand while working the mechanism with the other. "I need an ambulance at 247 Elmwood Avenue, apartment 3B. 6-year-old girl trapped in freezer, possible hypothermia." He wedged his fingers beneath the latch, using leverage from years of rock climbing. The metal groaned, shifted. "Come on." The latch gave way with a metallic screech. Christopher threw open the lid, and Maya tumbled forward into his arms, small body trembling violently, skin ice cold. He wrapped his jacket around her immediately, rubbing her arms, generating warmth. "Got you," he murmured, and Mia crashed into them both, sobbing, wrapping tiny arms around her sister. "I've got you both." Maya's teeth chattered, but she managed one word, looking up with enormous blue eyes, confused and relieved. "Daddy." The word pierced him. These children didn't know him, had never seen him, yet they were calling him Daddy with such faith, such need. "I'm here. You're safe now." Paramedics arrived, Maya being checked, diagnosis of mild hypothermia but nothing permanent. They worked efficiently while Mia clung to Christopher's hand, explaining in fragments how it happened. "We were so hungry and Maya said there were leftovers and she climbed in to reach the container and then the door wouldn't open and you did exactly right. You saved your sister's life, Mia. You were brave and smart." "But why didn't Mommy answer? Where is she?" "I'm here." The voice came from the doorway, sharp with panic. "I'm here. What happened?" Christopher turned and found himself looking at a woman who made his breath catch. Not because of beauty, though she was beautiful in a tired way, blonde hair in a messy ponytail, blue eyes identical to her daughter's, but because of sheer terror in her expression. She stumbled toward her children as though gravity itself pulled her, dropping to her knees, gathering both girls with a sob from somewhere primal and fierce. "Maya, baby, oh God, what happened?" She checked her daughter with shaking hands, looking at paramedics, at Christopher, trying to piece together the emergency. "I left for 2 hours, just 2 hours for my shift, and I forgot my phone and—" "Mom, Maya got stuck in the freezer. We were hungry. I'm sorry." The woman's face crumpled. She pulled both girls closer and Christopher saw guilt hit her, self-recrimination of a parent pushed beyond capacity. "It's okay, you're both okay, that's all that matters." "Ma'am," a paramedic touched her shoulder. "Your daughter is fine. No frostbite, temperature coming back up. We'd like to take her to Boston General to be certain." The woman looked up, and Christopher saw her mind working through logistics he'd never considered. How to get to the hospital, the cost, the shift she'd miss. "Yes, of course, whatever she needs. I'll drive you, all of you." She looked at him fully for the first time, confusion flooding her features. "Who are you?" Fair question. Finally, Mia answered, voice proud. "That's Daddy. I called him when Maya got stuck." The woman's eyes widened. She looked at Christopher, at paramedics, at her daughters. I'm sorry. What? Can we discuss this at the hospital? Your daughter needs... My daughters need a lot of things. But what they don't need is a stranger pretending to be their father. Mom, he helped us. He came right away. We'll talk later. She turned to paramedics. How much is the ambulance? Don't worry about that now, ma'am. I always worry about it. That's my job. Christopher watched her, this fierce woman holding her broken family together with bare hands and pure will, and felt something shift in his chest, something unfamiliar and unsettling. I'm Christopher Brennan, and I don't know why your daughter has my number saved as emergency contact. But I'm very glad she did. The drive to Boston General stretched through evening traffic, Christopher's Tesla gliding silently through streets growing progressively upscale as they left Elmwood behind. In the back seat, Maya sat bundled in blankets, color slowly returning as Mia held her hand whispering reassurances. In the passenger seat, the woman who'd introduced herself tersely as Natalie Walsh stared out the window with an expression Christopher couldn't read. Part gratitude, part suspicion, wholly exhausted. You don't have to do this, Natalie said suddenly. We can manage from here. I know you can, but you shouldn't have to, not alone, not today. She turned to look at him then, really look, and he felt the weight of her scrutiny. He knew what she saw, expensive watch, designer clothes, hands that had never known manual labor. A man from a world so removed from hers, they might as well be different planets. Why? Why would a man like you drop everything for a random phone call? Why would my phone have your number? Why would my daughters call you daddy when I've never seen you before in my life? Those are all excellent questions, and I don't have answers to most of them. But I can tell you this. When your daughter called and said her sister was trapped, I didn't think. I just acted. People don't just act. Not people with Teslas and Rolex watches. People like you have assistants to handle complications. You don't personally show up to rescue strange children. She wasn't wrong. Christopher thought of his normal routine, his structured existence. In that life, he would have had his assistant call 911, maybe followed up with legal. He certainly wouldn't have broken traffic laws racing across the city. He wouldn't be driving a frightened family to the hospital. Maybe I'm not as predictable as you think. From the back seat, Maya's small voice piped up, stronger now. Mommy, I'm sorry we tried to get the leftovers. We were just really hungry and Mia said we should wait, but I said just a little bit wouldn't matter and... Hush, baby. Natalie twisted in her seat, reaching back to touch her daughter's face with infinite tenderness. None of this is your fault. You hear me? Not one bit. But we should have waited. We knew food stamps come tomorrow. Christopher's hands tightened on the wheel. One more day. These children had been counting down to food stamps while he'd been in meetings discussing million-dollar acquisitions. The contrast felt obscene. You're 6 years old. Being hungry isn't something you should ever apologize for. That's on me. That's my responsibility, and I'm doing my best. You're doing more than that. They're lucky to have you. Natalie laughed, but it was a broken sound. Lucky. Right. Lucky that their mother works 3 jobs and still can't keep enough food in the house. Lucky that I had to leave them alone because I can't afford childcare. Some luck. Mom, don't cry, we're okay, Daddy saved us. There it was again, that word. Christopher saw Natalie's shoulders stiffen, saw her turn with an expression mixing confusion and fear. We need to address that. Right now, you're not their father. I know that. Then why did they call you that? Why is your number in my phone? I don't know you. I've never met you, so how... Mom, Mia interrupted. I called the emergency contact, remember? You showed us. You said if something bad happened and you weren't there, we should call emergency. Natalie went very still. She pulled her phone from her purse with shaking hands, navigating to contacts, scrolling to ICE in case of emergency. There it was, a single entry. Emergency, Dad. Christopher Brennan's number. The silence became profound. Christopher could hear his own heartbeat, could hear the soft breathing of girls in back, could hear the moment Natalie's breath caught as she stared at her phone like it held answers to riddles she'd forgotten asking. That's impossible. I never entered that. I don't even know how... Could someone else have added it? A friend? Family member? I don't have... She stopped herself. She didn't have people, didn't have support systems. This doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. But right now, your daughter needs doctors. We can solve mysteries after we make sure she's okay. Natalie looked at him and something shifted. Not trust exactly, but perhaps the beginning of it. A tentative truce in the face of shared concern. Okay, but after the doctors clear her, you owe me answers. I promise I'll try. The emergency room was surprisingly quiet for Thursday evening. A nurse took Maya's information while Natalie filled out paperwork with weary practice. Christopher hung back, suddenly uncertain of his role. He was an outsider here, wasn't he? A man who'd stumbled into someone else's crisis through technological coincidence. Yet when Maya called out, "Daddy, don't leave," he found himself moving closer without conscious decision, sitting beside Mia, who immediately leaned against him like it was natural. You have a nice car. Is it fast? Pretty fast. Faster than Mommy's car? We don't have a car anymore, Natalie said quietly, not looking up. We take the bus. Christopher processed this, adding it to the growing portrait of this family's circumstances. No car, food stamps, 3 jobs, forgotten lunches. The arithmetic was simple and brutal. Natalie was working herself to exhaustion and still barely surviving. Maya Walsh. A doctor appeared. We're ready for you, sweetheart. The examination took 30 minutes. Christopher waited with Mia, playing a word game she invented. She was bright, he noticed, quick-witted and creative, with verbal ability that seemed advanced for 6. What makes you special? Christopher asked, genuinely curious. Maya can draw anything, like anything, and I can remember stuff really good. Like all the times tables, even though we're not supposed to learn those until later. She paused, studying him. Are you really not our daddy? The question landed with unexpected force. Christopher looked into those blue eyes so much like her mother's, and felt something fierce and protective rise in his chest. I'm not. I'm sorry if that's disappointing. It's okay, we never had a daddy anyway, just Mommy. But you seem nice. Maybe you could be our friend? Friend. Such a simple word. Such an enormous concept. Christopher had business associates, professional connections, golfing partners. But friends? Real friends who wanted nothing except his presence? He couldn't remember the last time. I'd like that. Natalie and Maya emerged. The little girl, looking much better with natural color, returned. The doctor spoke with Natalie in low tones. No permanent damage. Watch for confusion or dizziness. Warm fluids and rest. We can go. We can go. Natalie turned to Christopher. Thank you for the ride. We'll take the bus from here. Let me drive you home. It's late. You're exhausted. Your daughters have been through trauma, please. She studied him for a long moment, those blue eyes searching his face for something, ulterior motives perhaps, or the catch that surely must accompany kindness from men like him. Finally she nodded. Okay, but then we talk. The drive back felt different. Maya dozed against Mia, both girls wrapped in blankets. Natalie sat quietly, occasionally checking on them, profile illuminated by passing streetlights. Christopher found himself stealing glances, trying to understand the mystery she represented. I've been thinking about the number, about when I got this phone. Christopher's attention sharpened. When was that? 7 months ago. My old phone died and I couldn't afford a new one, so I went to this electronics repair shop in Southie. The owner, Marcus, he's good people. He had a refurbished smartphone he sold me cheap. He said it was already set up, just needed my accounts. Said someone had donated it, asked him to help people who needed them. Do you remember anything else? He said it was weird. The person who donated it left specific instructions. The phone should go to someone with kids, someone who needed help, someone named Natalie, if possible. The words hung in the air, loaded with implication. Christopher felt the hair on his arms rise. That's oddly specific. Yeah, I thought it was just Marcus being dramatic. But now I'm wondering if someone specifically wanted me to have a phone with your number on it. But why? Who would do that? I have no idea, do you? Christopher thought about his life. Meticulously organized, carefully controlled, free from dramatic complications. No, I have no enemies who'd do something this elaborate. No friends who'd be that presumptuous. Then what? They reached her building. Christopher pulled up to the red doors. In the back seat, Maya stirred. "Daddy, can you carry me upstairs? I'm really tired." Christopher looked at Natalie for permission. After a moment, she nodded. He gathered Maya carefully, the little girl wrapping her arms around his neck, head settling against his shoulder with such trust it made his throat tight. The walk up 3 flights felt like a pilgrimage. Christopher noticed things he'd been too panicked to see earlier: missing banister sections, water-stained ceiling, pervasive smell of damp and decay. This building was one winter pipe burst from being condemned. Inside apartment 3B, Natalie directed him to a tiny bedroom where 2 twin beds sat inches apart, covered with worn but clean bedding. Christopher set Maya down gently, and immediately Mia climbed into the other bed, the girls reaching across the gap to hold hands. "Thank you for saving me, Daddy." Christopher tucked the blanket around her, something primal and protective surging through him. "Sleep well, sweetheart." In the main room, Natalie stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring at city lights. Christopher waited, giving her space to process. "My daughters think you're their father, and someone went to elaborate lengths to ensure I'd be able to contact you in an emergency. And you dropped everything to help children you'd never met. None of this makes sense." "No, but maybe sense isn't what matters. Maybe what matters is that your daughters are safe. And tomorrow, next week, when they keep calling you Daddy and building dreams around you? What happens when you disappear back to your real life and break their hearts?" Fair question. Christopher had built his fortune on calculating risks. He knew how to acquire companies, negotiate deals, maximize shareholder value. What he didn't know was how to explain the certainty that had taken root in his chest, the absolute conviction that walking away would be the biggest mistake of his life. "What if I don't disappear?" Natalie's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. You don't even know us. I know your daughters are brave and smart. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. I know that someone thought we should be connected, and maybe that someone knew something we don't. That's insane. People don't just... Life doesn't work like that. Rich men don't adopt ready-made families because of mysterious phone numbers. You're right, they don't. But maybe it's time someone did." The silence stretched between them, loaded with possibility and impossibility. Finally, Natalie spoke, voice barely audible. "I need to think about all of this. About what it would mean for my girls if you're serious, or what it would do to them if you're not. Thank you for everything today. Truly. But I need you to leave now." Christopher nodded. At the door, he paused. "May I call tomorrow to check on Maya?" Natalie hesitated, then nodded. "Tomorrow. But Christopher, figure out what you really want before you call. Because my daughters have already been abandoned by one father. They won't survive being abandoned by 2. The words followed him down the stairs. One father. Past tense. Someone had been there before. Someone who'd left this incredible woman to raise twins alone in poverty. In his penthouse, surrounded by minimalist furniture and abstract art that cost more than Natalie's annual salary, Christopher stood by his window looking at the city, the same city he'd observed from 3B, but from such a different height, different perspective. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. His heart lurched. But when he answered, it wasn't Mia's voice. It was a man's. Older, gravelly, with satisfaction. "Mr. Brennan, forgive the intrusion. My name is Marcus O'Brien. I own a repair shop in Southie." Christopher's pulse quickened. The man who sold Natalie her phone. "Ah, she told you. Good. I think it's time you and I had a conversation. About destiny, about purpose, and about the rather unusual circumstances that brought you into that family's life. Did you put my number in her phone?" "No, Mr. Brennan, I did not. But I know who did. And I think you should know too. Because this story, it's much bigger than a coincidental emergency contact. Meet me tomorrow, noon. My shop at 47 Harbor Street. Come ready to learn something about your past that's going to change everything about your future." The line went dead. Christopher stared at his phone, mind racing. His past? What past? He knew his history: orphaned at 16, foster care until 18, built his company from nothing. No family, no connections, no mysteries. Yet someone had connected him to Natalie. Someone had ensured those little girls would call him. Someone had known something. And tomorrow, he'd find out what. Morning came with soft insistence of September sunshine. Christopher had barely slept, mind replaying yesterday's events: Mia's terrified voice, Maya's blue lips, Natalie's fierce protectiveness, and the mysterious call from Marcus O'Brien. He'd spent hours researching, running background checks on Natalie Walsh, single mother, 28 years old, clean record, 3 part-time jobs, searching his own records for any connection to Harbor Street or electronics shops, finding nothing. At 6 a.m., he called his private investigator, Sandra Chen. "I need everything you can find on Marcus O'Brien, Harbor Street repair shop, and any connection between my name and Natalie Walsh or her daughters." Sandra's professional calm never wavered. Time frame? The last 10 years. Everything. Bank records if you can get them legally, property records, business licenses, phone records. Connected or manipulated? The question gave Christopher pause. I don't know yet. Maybe both. By 9 a.m. he'd received preliminary report. Marcus O'Brien, 63, Irish immigrant, owned O'Brien Electronics Repair for 35 years. Clean record except drunk driving charge 20 years ago, dismissed. No obvious connection to Christopher or Brennan Industries. But Sandra's note at the bottom made him frown. Something's off. His business barely breaks even, but he owns the building outright and has donated over $200K to local charities in past 5 years. Money's coming from somewhere not showing on official records. Christopher was processing this when his phone rang. Natalie. "Maya's asking for you. She woke up scared, asking if yesterday was real or a nightmare. Asking if you're really coming back or if she imagined you." The words pierced him. "Tell her I'm real. May I speak to her?" A pause, then a small voice. "Daddy?" Christopher closed his eyes against the surge of emotion. "Hey Maya, how are you feeling?" "My chest feels funny, like heavy, and I had bad dreams about being cold. But Mommy said you called to check on me. That means you're real, right?" "I'm very real, sweetheart, and I'm so glad you're okay. Will you come see us again? Or do you have to go away now because the emergency is over?" How did he answer that? How did he explain to a 6-year-old that he was planning to potentially upend his entire life because of a phone call and mysterious benefactor and a feeling he couldn't name? "I have a meeting today, but maybe I could stop by after. Bring dinner? Pizza?" "We haven't had pizza in forever." "Pizza it is. Extra cheese. Extra everything." She giggled, the sound like sunlight through storm clouds, then her voice dropped to a whisper. "Daddy, thank you for not being pretend." After the call ended, Christopher sat motionless. Not being pretend. Such a simple request. Such enormous responsibility. At 11:30 he headed to Harbor Street. O'Brien Electronics Repair sat between a laundromat and convenience store in a neighborhood gentrification hadn't discovered. The shopfront looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. Hand-painted sign, dusty window display. The kind of place that survived on reputation rather than advertising. A bell chimed as Christopher entered. The interior matched the exterior. Crammed shelves, repair bench piled with disassembled devices, smell of solder and electronics. Behind the counter sat a man who could only be Marcus O'Brien, silver hair pulled back in a ponytail, weathered face with bright blue eyes, wearing a t-shirt that proclaimed, "I void warranties." "Mr. Brennan, right on time. That's good. Shows respect." He stood surprisingly tall. "Coffee? It's terrible, but it's hot." "I'm fine." "You said you know who put my number in Natalie's phone. I want answers." "Direct. I like that. But first tell me, why did you come yesterday when the little girl called? Man like you don't owe anything to strangers." "Because a child needed help." "Plenty of children need help. You walk past them every day." "What made these children different?" Christopher opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Fair question. What had made him answer that call? What had made him break every protocol, abandon meetings, race across the city? "I don't know. I just couldn't not go." Marcus nodded slowly as if this satisfied something. "Sit down, Mr. Brennan." This is going to take a while and you're going to want to be sitting. Christopher sat on a worn stool while Marcus disappeared into a back room, returning with a manila folder that looked decades old. He placed it carefully on the counter between them. 25 years ago, a young woman came into this shop. She was pregnant, maybe 7 months along, and crying. Her phone had died and she needed to call someone desperately. I let her use my phone. She called a man, begged him to meet her, said they needed to talk about the baby. He told her to get an abortion or he'd ruin her life, said he had a reputation to protect, a career to build. Christopher felt cold spreading through his chest. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand how people can be broken, how choices made in fear can echo through decades. Marcus opened the folder, revealing photographs, a young woman, blonde and beautiful, standing in front of this very shop. Her name was Catherine Walsh, and she didn't get the abortion. She had twins, 2 beautiful girls. The floor seemed to tilt. Walsh, Natalie's last name, twins. Wait, Natalie is 28. Her daughters are 6. That would make Catherine, Natalie's older sister, by 8 years. Catherine raised Natalie after their parents died when Natalie was 12. Then Catherine got pregnant and everything fell apart. Christopher's investigator instincts kicked in. If Catherine had twins 25 years ago, they'd be adults now. But Mia and Maya are 6. Because these aren't Catherine's children. These are Natalie's. But the story, the man who abandoned them, the fear, the poverty, that all echoes Catherine's story. History repeating itself in the worst possible way. I don't understand. What does any of this have to do with me? Marcus pulled out another photograph. Younger version of himself standing beside Catherine, both smiling. Catherine became like a daughter to me. I helped her where I could, donated furniture when the twins were born, helped with medical bills, gave her work in the shop. I watched her struggle and survive and eventually thrive. She became a nurse, raised her girls with dignity despite having nothing. And I watched her raise young Natalie too, teaching her to be strong, to be fierce, to never depend on a man for salvation. Where is Catherine now? The brightness dimmed in Marcus's eyes. Cancer took her 3 years ago. Aggressive, brutal, no insurance to fight it properly. She was 35 years old. He closed the folder carefully. Before she died, she made me promise 2 things. First, that I'd watch over Natalie and the twins. Second, that I'd find someone worthy to help them if they needed it. And you chose me? Why? Because I spent 3 years looking. 3 years watching Natalie work herself to exhaustion, watching those little girls grow up too fast, too hungry. And I prayed. Not something I do often, Mr. Brennan, but I prayed for someone. And then 7 months ago, something extraordinary happened. He pulled out final item from the folder, newspaper clipping. Christopher recognized it immediately. A profile in Boston Business Journal, discussing his company's charitable initiative to provide technology access to underprivileged families. I read this article about a man who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd been orphaned and alone and succeeded anyway, who was using his wealth to help kids like he used to be, and I thought, maybe here's someone who'd understand what these girls need. Not a savior, not charity, but someone who'd see their worth and choose them. Christopher's throat felt tight. So, you deliberately connected us? Put my number in her phone? I acquired a phone through legitimate channels. Your company's donation program, actually. Ironic, isn't it? And yes, I programmed your number as emergency contact, but I didn't make Maya climb into that freezer. I didn't create the emergency. I simply ensured that if one occurred, Natalie would have access to someone capable of helping. That's manipulation. That's intervention. And before you get righteous, ask yourself this. Are you angry I did it or angry it worked? Are you here demanding answers because you want to walk away? Or because you want to know if it's okay to stay? The question pierced through Christopher's indignation. He wasn't angry. He was terrified. Terrified because in less than 24 hours, 3 strangers had become the most important people in his life. What if I hurt them? What if I'm not what they need? Marcus's expression softened. What if you don't? What if this is exactly what you've been looking for without knowing it? What if three people who need someone and one person who needs purpose finally found each other? Life doesn't work that cleanly. Maybe not. But faith does. Hope does. Catherine believed that despite how broken the world made her, somewhere there were still good people. She made me promise to help her family find one. And I believe that person is you. Christopher sat in silence, processing everything. The manipulation that wasn't quite manipulation. The matchmaking that wasn't quite matchmaking. The man who abandoned Catherine. Do you know who he was? No, she never told me. Said it didn't matter. He'd made his choice and she'd made hers. Marcus hesitated. But she did say once that he'd probably gone on to be very successful. That men like him always did, because they never let things like conscience slow them down. The bitterness in those words resonated. Christopher thought of his own single-minded drive to succeed, relationships he'd sacrificed, emotional connections he'd avoided. I'm going to see them tonight, bringing pizza. Maya asked for it. And after tonight? I don't know. I don't know if I'm capable of being what they need. Nobody does, that's the secret. Love isn't something you know how to do. It's something you choose to do over and over despite being terrified of screwing it up. At the door, Christopher paused. Catherine, would she approve of you manipulating her sister's life like this? Marcus's smile was sad. Catherine spent her whole life fighting for her family. She'd have done far worse if she thought it would help them. The question isn't whether she'd approve. The question is whether you'll honor what she fought for by giving them what she couldn't: security, stability, and someone who stays. Christopher drove to his office but found himself unable to concentrate. By 5 p.m. he'd left and done something he'd never done before, stopped at a toy store. I need gifts for 6-year-old twins, girls. One likes art, one likes learning. The clerk's eyes lit up. Birthday? No, just because. He left with a professional art set for Maya and a children's encyclopedia set for Mia, plus promised pizza, 3 large boxes with extra everything. Driving to Elmwood Avenue felt different now, armed with Marcus's revelations and his own growing certainty that yesterday hadn't been coincidence but something more profound. Natalie opened the door at his knock, expression wary but less hostile. She'd changed into jeans and a faded sweater, hair loose around her shoulders. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Pizza! Mia appeared behind her mother, Maya beside her, both girls' faces lighting up. And presents? Maybe, but pizza first. Growing girls need fuel. Dinner was chaos, good chaos. Mia talked non-stop about school while Maya drew on napkins. Natalie watched everything with careful attention, clearly torn between gratitude and fear. After pizza, Christopher presented the gifts. Maya's gasp when she saw the art supplies made him feel like he'd accomplished something more important than any business deal. Mia immediately opened the encyclopedia to space, reading aloud with perfect pronunciation that shouldn't have been possible for 6. She taught herself to read at 4. Both of them did. They're special, exceptional, and they deserve so much more than I can give them. You give them everything that matters: love, security, the knowledge that they're valued. But it's not enough. It's never enough. They wear second-hand clothes and eat donated food, and I can't even keep them safe. Yesterday proved that. The kind who's working 3 jobs and still showing up every day with love and patience. The kind who adopted her nieces and gave them stability. You're not failing, Natalie. You're performing miracles with no resources. She looked at him. Really looked. And something shifted. Why are you here, Christopher? Really? Marcus called this afternoon, told me everything about Catherine, about how he connected us. So I'm asking directly, why are you here? In the other room, Mia and Maya played quietly, giving them this moment. Because when Maya called me daddy, I didn't correct her. Because when Mia held my hand, it felt like the first time I'd ever held on to something real. Because when I look at you, I see strength I didn't know existed. And because I went to my office today and nothing mattered. Billion-dollar deals felt meaningless. My entire carefully constructed life felt empty. But sitting here eating pizza with 3 people I barely know feels like the first true thing I've done in a decade. Natalie's eyes widened. That's insane. I know. I know how irrational this is. I know I should walk away. But I can't. I tried. I spent all last night and today trying to convince myself this was temporary insanity. But it's not. Which is a chance for all of us. You need help you shouldn't be too proud to accept. Your daughters need security and opportunity. And I need to matter to someone. Really matter. Not because of what I can buy or build, but because of who I choose to be for them. Silence filled the apartment. From the other room came the sound of Maya humming while she drew. If we do this, if we let you into our lives, you can't leave when it gets hard. You can't decide in 3 months that this was a nice experiment. Because my daughters have already lost one father they never knew and one mother they loved desperately. They can't lose anyone else. I understand. Do you? Do you understand what you're signing up for? Sick kids and school plays and fights about homework? Do you understand that being a parent isn't a charity project you can walk away from? I understand that I spent 32 years building a fortune and achieving nothing that matters. I understand that yesterday, for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And I understand that I'm terrified of screwing this up, but more terrified of not trying. Natalie studied his face, and Christopher let her see everything, the fear, the hope, the desperate sincerity. Okay. But we take this slow. You don't move in tomorrow. You show up consistently and prove you're serious. You let my daughters know you're a friend first, and we see where it goes. It is. I promise you, Natalie. This is exactly what I want. From the doorway came a small voice. Daddy? Maya stood there holding her new art supplies. Will you draw with me? Christopher looked at Natalie for permission. She nodded slowly, tears finally escaping. He crossed the room and sat beside Maya on the floor, accepting the crayon she offered. It was terrible. Stick figures and crooked houses. But Maya giggled and corrected him, and Mia joined them, and Natalie watched from the doorway with her hand pressed to her mouth. And Christopher Brennan, billionaire CEO who'd built an empire on cold logic, found himself exactly where he never knew he'd always wanted to be, on a worn carpet in a tiny apartment, drawing terrible pictures with 6-year-olds who called him daddy, while a fierce blonde woman learned to trust that maybe, just maybe, not all men leave. Somewhere in a repair shop across the city, Marcus O'Brien smiled at his phone, looking at the message Natalie had sent. Thank you. For everything. He typed back. Catherine would be proud. And perhaps she was. Perhaps somewhere in whatever comes after, a woman who'd fought poverty and cancer and abandonment finally rested easy, knowing her daughters were no longer alone. That the emergency contact she'd never known to program had proven exactly what Marcus hoped, that good men still existed. That help came when you needed it most. That sometimes the universe conspired to heal broken families in the most unexpected ways. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight was pizza and crayons and tentative trust. Tonight was the beginning of something none of them could name yet, but all of them needed desperately. Tonight was enough. 3 weeks passed like a dream Christopher kept expecting to wake from. But every morning his alarm went off and the dream persisted, transformed into routines that felt more real than anything in his previous life. Tuesday and Thursday breakfasts at the tiny kitchen table in apartment 3B, where Mia quizzed him on state capitals, while Maya drew portraits of their family with purple crayons. Saturday afternoons at the public library, where both girls devoured books with a hunger that matched their physical need for food, a need Christopher had quietly addressed by stocking Natalie's pantry and freezer while she was at work, playing it off as some extras I had when she protested. You can't keep doing this, Natalie said one evening after the girls were asleep, gesturing at the new winter coats hanging by the door, the art supplies that seemed to multiply, the groceries that appeared like magic. We're not a charity case. I know you're not. Christopher sat on the worn couch, careful not to presume too much space in her home. But you're also not required to do everything alone anymore. That's what partners do. They help each other. Partners. She tested the word, sitting beside him but maintaining careful distance. Is that what we are? It was a fair question. What were they exactly? Christopher came to dinner 4 nights a week. He'd met with Maya's teacher about her exceptional artistic abilities, and arranged for her to attend a Saturday program at the Museum of Fine Arts, scholarship funded anonymously, of course. He'd helped Mia with a school project on the solar system that had resulted in a model so detailed, her teacher suspected adult intervention. He'd sat in emergency rooms twice more, once for Mia's sprained ankle from playground gymnastics, once for Maya's allergic reaction to nuts they hadn't known about. He'd become part of their rhythm, their routine, their lives. But Natalie maintained careful boundaries, never letting him too close, never quite believing he wouldn't disappear. "I don't know what we are," Christopher admitted, "but I know I don't want to be anywhere else." Before Natalie could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted, professional mask sliding into place. "I have to take this." She stepped into the kitchen, voice low. Christopher tried not to eavesdrop, but the apartment was too small for privacy. He caught fragments. "Yes, I understand the shift schedule changed. No, I can't make it work. I know I already swapped twice this month." When she returned, exhaustion had deepened the lines around her eyes. "I have to work a double shift tomorrow. The other waitress quit, and they're threatening to cut my hours if I don't cover. I'll stay with the girls." "Christopher, you have a company to run, which has a very competent executive team who can handle one day without me." He stood, moving closer but respecting her space. "Let me help, please. You can't keep working yourself to death." "I'm not." She stopped, because they both knew it was true. Despite Christopher's quiet interventions, Natalie still worked 3 jobs. She still left before sunrise and came home after dark. She still counted every penny with the precision of someone who'd learned too young that survival required vigilance. "What are you afraid of?" Christopher asked gently. "That I'll leave? That this is temporary? Or that maybe it's not, and then what do you do with that?" Natalie's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "All of it. I'm afraid of all of it. Because I'm starting to—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "The girls are already attached. They call you daddy like it's the most natural thing in the world. They light up when you arrive and ask about you when you're gone, and I—" "You what?" "I'm starting to forget how to do this alone." The confession came out broken. "And that terrifies me. Because alone is what I know. Alone is safe. If I let myself depend on you and you leave, I'm not leaving." Christopher closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. "Natalie, I'm not leaving. Not tomorrow, not next month, not ever. I need you to hear that and believe it." "How can I believe it? We've known each other 3 weeks. 3 weeks isn't enough time to fall in love?" The words were out before Christopher could stop them, hanging in the air like a confession that couldn't be taken back. "Because that's what's happening. What's been happening since the moment I saw you crash through that door, terrified for your daughters. Maybe it's insane. Maybe it's too fast. But it's true." Natalie stared at him, tears finally spilling over. "You can't say things like that. You can't just— People don't fall in love in 3 weeks. That's not how real life works." "Then how does it work? Tell me." "Because everything I thought I knew about how life works got thrown out the window when a 6-year-old called me daddy, and I realized I'd been waiting my entire life to hear that word. When a woman fiercer and stronger than anyone I've ever met made me understand that success without purpose is just expensive emptiness." "Christopher, I love you." He said it again, clearer this time. "I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you'd set yourself on fire to keep your daughters warm. I love that you don't need me, but you're learning to let me choose to be here anyway. I love—" She kissed him. Sudden and desperate, and 3 weeks of tension finally breaking. Christopher responded immediately, pulling her closer. And for a moment there was only this: the rightness of it, the inevitability, the sense that every path he'd walked had been leading here. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Natalie pressed her forehead against his. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Completely insane," he agreed. 3 weeks. 21 of the best days of my life." She laughed, the sound breaking through tears. "The girls can't know, not yet. Not until we're sure this is—" "They already know." Christopher smiled. "Maya asked me last Tuesday if you were my girlfriend. Mia told her that was baby talk and the proper term was romantic partner. They're 6, not blind." Despite everything, Natalie laughed. We're doing this wrong. Everything about this is backwards. You're supposed to date me, then meet my kids, then slowly integrate into our lives over months or years. Or, Christopher interrupted gently, we could accept that our story doesn't follow the usual script. That sometimes life puts people exactly where they need to be, exactly when they need to be there. Marcus understood that. Catherine understood that. Maybe it's time we understand it too. Natalie was quiet for a long moment, studying his face like she was memorizing it. Finally, she nodded. Okay. But slow, Christopher. We take this slow. For the girl's sake, if not for ours. As slow as you need, he promised, even as both of them knew that ship had sailed. There was nothing slow about the way his heart beat faster when she walked into her room. Nothing gradual about the way the twins had claimed space in his soul. Nothing measured about how completely his life had reoriented around this family. The next morning, Christopher arrived at 6 a.m. to stay with Mia and Maya while Natalie worked her double shift. He made pancakes that were slightly burned, and orange juice he forgot to dilute properly, and the girls ate everything while regaling him with elaborate plans for how they'd spend the day. Can we go to the park? Maya asked hopefully. And the bookstore, Mia added, the one with the big science section? We can do both, Christopher promised, mentally rearranging his calendar. His assistant had already learned to mark certain days as unavailable without asking questions. The board had noticed his increased absences, but profits were up, so they kept their concerns muted. Christopher knew it couldn't continue indefinitely. At some point, he'd need to address the growing conflict between his old life and this new one. But that was a problem for future Christopher. Present Christopher was helping 6-year-olds navigate the politics of park playground equipment and mediating disputes over whose turn it was on the swings. At the bookstore, something shifted. Mia was deep in the science section, reading about black holes with the concentration of a graduate student while Maya browsed art books nearby. Christopher was reviewing email on his phone when a woman approached. Well-dressed, probably late 50s, with the kind of polished appearance that suggested old money. Excuse me, she said, smiling. Are those your daughters? They're absolutely beautiful. Christopher's first instinct was to correct her. To explain they weren't his daughters, not really, not legally. But then he looked at Mia and Maya, saw the way Maya instinctively checked to make sure he was still there, saw how Mia held up a book to show him something interesting, and the correction died in his throat. Yes, he said. Thank you. Twins? How wonderful, and so well behaved. Mine were terrors at that age. She laughed. You're blessed. After she left, Christopher stood very still, processing what he'd just done. He'd claimed them. Publicly, definitively, without hesitation. And it had felt right. More right than anything he'd ever done in boardrooms or investment meetings. Daddy? Maya appeared at his elbow, holding an art book about impressionist painters. Can we get this one? It has Monet. Christopher looked down at her hopeful face and felt something break open in his chest. Some final resistance he'd been holding on to. Some last defense against the complete transformation of his life. We can get whatever you want, sweetheart. They left the bookstore with 6 books, 3 for Maya on art techniques and famous painters, 3 for Mia on astronomy, marine biology, and ancient civilizations. Christopher carried the bag while each girl held one of his hands, chattering about their treasures. And somewhere between the bookstore and the car, he accepted the truth. These were his daughters. Not biologically, not yet legally, but in every way that mattered. That evening, when Natalie returned from her shift exhausted and overwhelmed, she found her apartment transformed. Christopher had cleaned while the girls napped. Dishes washed, floors swept, laundry folded. Dinner was ready. Nothing fancy, just pasta and vegetables, but hot and prepared with care. Mia and Maya were fed, bathed, and reading their new books in bed. You didn't have to do all this, Natalie said, but her voice held wonder rather than protest. I wanted to. Christopher handed her a cup of tea he'd made exactly how she liked it, another detail he'd quietly catalogued. Sit, rest. Let someone take care of you for 5 minutes. She sat, and the exhaustion seemed to crash over her all at once. Someone called me at work today. A lawyer. Said I was named in a lawsuit. Christopher went very still, What kind of lawsuit? The landlord. Apparently the building is being sold to developers. Everyone has 60 days to vacate. And he's suing several tenants, including me, for back rent he claims we owe, which is insane because I have receipts for every payment, but he says his records show differently. She pressed her hands against her eyes. I can't afford a lawyer to fight this. I can barely afford rent, and I don't know where we'll go. Everything in this neighborhood is being bought up and renovated. Rent's doubling, tripling. I've been looking and there's nothing. Nothing I can afford. Nothing that would take us without first and last month plus security deposit. How much does he claim you owe? $3,000. She laughed bitterly. $3,000 I don't have and never owed. But proving that means lawyers and court dates and time away from work I can't afford to lose. Christopher's mind shifted into the calculating mode that had built his fortune. I'll take care of it. No, absolutely not. I won't let you. Natalie. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. I have lawyers on retainer who handle more complicated cases than this before breakfast. Let me make one phone call. That's all. One phone call to someone who can look at your receipts, compare them against the landlord's claims, and make this go away. That's not fair to you. This is my problem. Your problems are my problems now. That's what this means. That's what I meant when I said I love you. He squeezed her hands gently. You've been carrying everything alone for so long. Please, let me help carry some of it. She looked at him with such conflicted emotion, gratitude and fear and desperate hope all tangled together. Finally, she nodded. Christopher made the call that night to his attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia, who'd handled everything from corporate litigation to complex real estate disputes. He explained the situation in clinical terms, leaving out the emotional stakes, and Patricia promised to handle it personally. One more thing, Christopher added. I need you to find an apartment, 3 bedrooms, safe neighborhood, near good public schools. Budget is flexible. For the family you've been spending time with. Patricia's tone was carefully neutral, but Christopher knew his inner circle had noticed the changes in him. Should I look in Boston or the suburbs? Boston. Somewhere they'll feel at home, not displaced. Christopher. Patricia paused, choosing her words carefully. As your attorney and friend, I have to ask, are you prepared for the legal implications of what you're doing? If you're establishing yourself as a father figure, providing financial support, there could be. I know the implications. I want them. Another pause. Then I'll find you a home. Home. The word resonated. Christopher looked around apartment 3B with its water-stained ceiling and ancient appliances and drafty windows, and realized it was the first place that had ever felt like home to him. Not because of the space itself, but because of the people in it. 2 weeks later, Patricia called with options. Christopher reviewed them during a board meeting, half listening to quarterly projections while studying floor plans and school ratings. One stood out immediately. A 3-bedroom in a renovated brownstone in Jamaica Plain. Hardwood floors, an updated kitchen, and a small backyard where the girls could play. Near excellent public schools and a community center with art programs. Rent was reasonable by his standards, astronomical by Natalie's. He scheduled a viewing, deliberately not mentioning it to Natalie yet. Some things required seeing to believe. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. That Saturday, while Christopher was reviewing contracts at his penthouse, his phone rang. Mia's contact photo filled the screen, one he'd taken of her explaining star formation with the gravitas of a professor. Daddy? Her voice was wrong, too quiet, scared in a way he'd never heard. Something's wrong with Maya. Christopher's blood turned to ice. What do you mean? What's happening? She's shaking really bad and she won't wake up all the way, and Mommy's at work and I don't know what to. I'm coming, right now. Call 911, okay? Tell them your address and that your sister is having a seizure. Can you do that? Yes. Mia's voice strengthened with purpose. I can do that. I'm 5 minutes away. Christopher was already moving, grabbing keys, racing for the elevator. Stay on the phone with 911 and then call me back. The drive to Elmwood Avenue took 3 minutes. A lifetime compressed into racing heartbeats and traffic lights he ran without hesitation. He took the stairs 4 at a time, burst through the unlocked door, and found Mia sitting on the floor beside Maya, phone pressed to her ear, describing symptoms to the 911 operator with remarkable calm. Maya was seizing, body rigid, eyes rolled back, small frame convulsing in ways that shouldn't be possible. Christopher dropped beside her, checking her breathing, positioning her on her side, drawing on distant first aid training from corporate safety courses he'd never expected to use. "Ambulance is 2 minutes out," Mia reported, watching him with absolute trust that he'd fix this, that Daddy could fix anything. "You did perfect, sweetheart. So perfect." Christopher kept his voice steady even as terror clawed at his throat. "Maya, I'm here. I've got you. You're going to be okay." The seizure lasted 90 seconds. An eternity. When it finally stopped, Maya's eyes fluttered open, confused and frightened, not understanding what had happened to her body. "Daddy." Her voice was so small. "I don't feel good." "I know, baby. The ambulance is coming. They're going to take care of you." Paramedics arrived, efficient and professional. They asked questions Christopher answered while Mia provided details about Maya's medical history with the precision of someone twice her age. Within minutes, they had Maya stabilized and loaded in the ambulance. "I'm riding with her," Christopher said, not asking permission. "Family only. I am family." The words came out with absolute certainty. "I'm her father." The paramedic looked at Mia, who nodded vigorously. "That's our daddy. All right, let's go." At the hospital, Christopher held Maya's hand while doctors ran tests. He called Natalie, who left work immediately, arriving tear-streaked and terrified. He coordinated with specialists, demanded answers with the authority of someone used to getting them, and never once left Maya's side except when medical procedures required it. The diagnosis came 3 hours later. Epilepsy, likely genetic, triggered by stress and inadequate nutrition. Inadequate nutrition? Natalie's voice broke. "I feed them. Every day I feed them." "I'm sure you do, ma'am," the doctor said gently. "But sometimes children's bodies need more than we can provide on limited budgets. Regular meals, vitamin supplements, reduced stress. These things can help manage the condition." Reduced stress. Christopher thought of the landlord lawsuit, the impending eviction, the constant fear and uncertainty that colored every day of these girls' lives. Maya had absorbed it all, her 6-year-old body trying to process adult anxieties until something broke. "We'll manage it," Christopher said firmly. "Whatever she needs. Whatever they both need. We'll make sure they have it." The doctor nodded, prescribing anti-seizure medication and scheduling follow-up appointments. And Christopher made mental notes of everything, already restructuring his life to accommodate daily medicine schedules and medical monitoring. That night, in a hospital room where Maya slept peacefully under observation, Natalie finally broke. "I'm failing them," she whispered. "I work 3 jobs and it's not enough. I try to give them everything and they're still hungry, still stressed, still getting sick because I can't provide what they need." "Stop." Christopher pulled her against his chest, let her sob into his shirt. "You're not failing. The system is failing. A world that requires parents to work themselves to death just to feed their children. That's what's broken. Not you. Never you. But Maya. We'll be fine. We'll manage her epilepsy together. We'll reduce her stress by giving her security and stability. And we'll do it as a family." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Natalie, move in with me." She stared at him. "What?" "Move in with me. You and the girls. My penthouse has 3 bedrooms and more space than I know what to do with. Or," he thought of the Jamaica Plain apartment he'd found. "Or I'll lease the brownstone I've been looking at. Whichever you prefer. But please, stop doing this alone. Stop trying to survive on scraps when I have more resources than I'll ever need and all I want is to share them with you. That's too much. We can't just move in with you after a month. What will people think?" "I don't care what people think. I care that Maya just had a seizure caused by stress you don't have to carry alone. I care that you're working yourself to death for an apartment you're about to lose anyway. I care that those girls deserve stability and you deserve rest, and I have the means to provide both." He cupped her face in his hands. Let me. Please. Not because you can't do this alone, you've proven you can, but because you shouldn't have to. Tears streamed down Natalie's face. If we do this, everything changes. There's no going back to before. The girls will expect. The girls already expect it. They've been asking when we're all going to live together for 2 weeks now. Maya drew a picture of our family, all 4 of us in a house with a backyard. They're ready for this. The question is whether you are. Natalie looked at Maya sleeping peacefully, at the machines monitoring her daughter's vitals, at the life they'd been scraping by and versus the life Christopher was offering. I'm terrified. Me too, but I'm more terrified of not trying. Christopher pressed his forehead to hers. Take a leap with me. Trust that sometimes the universe knows what it's doing when it connects people who need each other. For a long moment, Natalie was silent. Then, so quietly he almost missed it. Okay. Moving day arrived 2 weeks after Maya's seizure, occurring on a brilliantly clear October morning that felt like a blessing. Christopher had chosen the Jamaica Plain brownstone, closer to Natalie's work, better schools, community-oriented neighborhood where they wouldn't stand out as unusual. 3 bedrooms with hardwood floors, updated kitchen with appliances that actually worked, small backyard with a tree perfect for climbing. Most importantly, it felt like a home rather than a showcase. Natalie had insisted on keeping apartment 3B's furniture. Her pride wouldn't accept replacing everything, though Christopher had quietly supplemented with new beds for the girls, a proper dining table, and a couch that didn't have springs poking through worn fabric. The compromise suited them both, honoring Natalie's independence while providing comfort they all needed. This is really ours? Maya breathed, standing in the middle of her new bedroom. Soft yellow walls, large window letting in morning light, enough space for an art table Christopher had assembled the night before. All mine and Mia's? All yours, sweetheart. Christopher knelt beside her. Your own space to create whatever you can imagine. Across the hall, Mia was already organizing her room with systematic precision, arranging books by subject on new shelves. Daddy, can we paint the ceiling like the night sky? With constellations that glow in the dark? Absolutely. We'll start this weekend. Downstairs, Natalie stood in the kitchen, running her hand over granite countertops that weren't chipped or stained, opening cabinets Christopher had stocked with more food than they could eat in a month. Her expression was complex, wonder and relief tangled with something that might have been grief for how hard the before had been. You okay? Christopher came up behind her, carefully not touching, giving her space to process. I keep waiting for the catch, she admitted. For someone to tell me this is temporary or contingent on something I can't provide. I keep waiting for the bill to come due. The only bill is choosing to be here, choosing us. That's all I ask. She turned to face him, and her eyes were full of unshed tears. I watched my sister die in poverty. I watched her fight cancer without insurance, without resources, without the help she deserved. I swore I'd never let that happen to her girls. But I was failing, Christopher. Every day I was falling further behind. And then you. Her voice broke. You appeared like something from a story. Like Marcus prayed you into existence. Maybe he did. Christopher pulled her close finally, letting her burrow into his chest. Maybe that's exactly what happened. The first night in their new home, Christopher made dinner while the girls explored every corner of the house, their excited voices echoing through rooms that had been too silent for too long. He learned to cook over the past month. Simple things, nothing fancy, but made with care. Tonight was chicken and roasted vegetables, a meal that had become their tradition. Daddy, there's a swing in the backyard? Mia burst into the kitchen, eyes alight. Can we use it? After dinner and homework. But it's Saturday. Then, after dinner. Go tell your sister and wash your hands. Later, after the girls were asleep in their new rooms, Christopher and Natalie sat on the back porch watching the sun set behind Boston's skyline. The moment felt suspended, perfect and fragile, like something that might shatter if either of them spoke too loudly. I called Marcus today, Natalie said finally, to tell him about the move, about everything. What did he say? He said Catherine would be crying with joy, that she'd fought so hard to give those girls stability, and he was glad someone finally succeeded. Natalie paused. He also said something strange. He said the hardest part was just beginning. What did he mean? I don't know. But Marcus doesn't speak carelessly. She turned to look at Christopher. Are you sure about this? Really sure? Because in a few months the novelty will wear off. You'll remember what your life was like before. Uncomplicated, organized, free. And we're none of those things. We're messy and loud, and we're going to need you on your worst days, not just your best ones. Christopher took her hand, threading their fingers together. On my worst days, you're what I'll need. Coming home to this, to you, to them, that's what will make the bad days bearable. He lifted her hand to his lips. I'm not going anywhere, Natalie. You need to start believing that. She looked at him for a long moment, and something in her expression finally softened, some last defense crumbling. Okay, I'll try. The weeks that followed established rhythms that felt like they'd existed forever. Christopher adjusted his work schedule, going to the office later so he could have breakfast with the girls, leaving earlier to be home for dinner. His executive team adapted, conducting more video conferences, handling daily operations while he focused on strategic decisions. Profits actually increased. Turned out being happy made him more effective, not less. Maya's epilepsy was managed with medication and routine. No more seizures, though they remained vigilant. She thrived in her new school's art program, creating paintings that her teachers called exceptional. Christopher framed several, hanging them in the living room with the same care he'd once given to expensive abstract art. Mia devoured knowledge with the hunger of someone who'd been intellectually starved. Her teachers recommended testing for gifted programs. Christopher and Natalie agreed, sitting through meetings with educators who confirmed what they'd known. Mia's intelligence was remarkable, far beyond typical 6-year-old capacity. She'd need special accommodations, challenging curriculum, room to grow. She's going to do amazing things, Natalie said after one such meeting. Both of them are. They're going to have opportunities I never dreamed of giving them. You already gave them the most important thing, Christopher reminded her. You gave them love and the belief that they mattered. Everything else builds on that foundation. But Marcus's warning about the hardest part kept echoing in Christopher's mind. What did he mean? What could be harder than what they'd already navigated? The answer came on a Tuesday evening in mid-November. Christopher was helping Mia with a science project, while Maya drew pictures of autumn leaves when someone knocked on their door. Natalie answered, and Christopher heard her sharp intake of breath. Recognition and shock tangled together. Jason? Christopher's attention sharpened. He'd never heard that name before. Moving to the hallway, he saw Natalie blocking the doorway, her body language defensive, protective. On the other side stood a man, late 30s, wearing an expensive suit, with the kind of casual arrogance that came from never being told no. Natalie, you're looking well. The man's voice was smooth, practiced. Can I come in? No. What are you doing here? How did you find me? I have resources. Jason smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Heard you moved to a nice neighborhood. Quite the upgrade from Elmwood. How'd you manage that on 3 waitress salaries? Natalie's jaw clenched. That's none of your business. You need to leave. Actually, I think it is my business, especially when it concerns my daughters. The world seemed to stop. Christopher felt the air leave his lungs. His daughters. Jason was the father who'd abandoned them. The man Natalie had refused to name, whose existence she'd carefully edited from every story. They're not your daughters, Natalie said, voice shaking with rage. You signed away your rights. You wanted nothing to do with them. You don't get to show up now and… I was young and scared. I made mistakes, but I've grown up, Natalie. I'm successful now, CEO of my own company, and I want to be part of their lives. Mommy? Maya appeared behind Christopher, sensing tension even if she didn't understand it. Who's that man? Jason's attention shifted to Maya, and something in his expression changed, calculation replacing whatever mask of remorse he'd been wearing. Hello, sweetheart, I'm… No one, Natalie cut him off sharply. He's no one. Go back to Daddy, baby. Maya ran to Christopher, who picked her up automatically, his mind racing through implications and legal ramifications and the sheer audacity of this man showing up now after years of absence. Daddy? Jason's eyebrows rose. That's interesting. Didn't realize you'd replaced me so quickly. Or is this a financial arrangement? Rich boyfriend paying the bills in exchange for playing house? Get out. Christopher's voice was quiet but carried unmistakable threat as he handed Maya to Natalie and stepped forward. You're not welcome here. And you are? I don't think we've met. I'm Jason Mitchell, father to those girls. And you are? Christopher Brennan, their actual father. The one who shows up, the one who holds them when they're scared and makes their lunches and knows that Maya's allergic to tree nuts and Mia can name every planet's moons in order. The one who loves them. You're just a genetic donor who made a cowardly choice 6 years ago. Jason's smile turned cold. Big words. Tell me, Mr. Brennan, are you on their birth certificate? Do you have legal custody? Any official standing at all? Because I do. I'm listed as their biological father, and in Massachusetts that gives me rights whether Ms. Walsh likes it or not. Christopher felt ice spread through his chest. He was right. Christopher had no legal standing. He was technically just a boyfriend. No matter how much he felt like their father, no matter how much they called him daddy, legally, he had no claim. You don't want them, Natalie said, and Christopher heard desperation beneath her anger. You never did. So what's this really about? Maybe I've changed. Maybe I want to know my daughters. Or, Jason's smile widened. Maybe I'm willing to walk away permanently, sign whatever documents you want terminating my rights if you're willing to make it worth my while. There it was, the real reason. Christopher saw it clearly now. Jason had somehow learned about Christopher's wealth and saw an opportunity. You're trying to extort us, Christopher said flatly. I'm trying to secure fair compensation for signing away my parental rights. Call it what you want. But unless you want me filing for custody, and trust me, I have lawyers who'd love this case, you'll want to negotiate. We're not negotiating with you, Natalie said fiercely. I'll see you in court before I give you 1 penny. Court would be interesting. Single mother, multiple jobs, can barely make rent, left children unattended. Then one has a seizure due to stress and malnutrition. That was in the hospital records, by the way. Medical neglect is a serious accusation. Meanwhile, I'm a successful businessman with resources to provide properly. A judge might find that compelling. Christopher moved before thinking, fury overriding reason. He crowded into Jason's space with barely controlled rage. If you try to take those girls from their mother, I will destroy you. I will use every resource, every connection, every dollar I have to ensure you never see them. Do you understand me? Jason held his ground, but Christopher saw fear flicker in his eyes. Threatening me won't help your case. It's not a threat. It's a promise. But here's an alternative. You walk away right now. You never contact this family again. And I don't make it my mission to ruin everything you've built. And what have I built that you could possibly threaten? Christopher smiled, and it wasn't kind. I'm Christopher Brennan of Brennan Industries, $3 billion valuation. Connections to every major law firm, tech company, and venture capital group in Boston. I can make your life very difficult, Jason. Or I can make sure you're compensated fairly for your trouble, and we never have this conversation again. He watched Jason's face as recognition dawned. The man had done his research on Natalie's new life, but clearly hadn't connected Christopher Brennan, the tech billionaire, with the man standing in this doorway. The calculation was visible, weighing how much he could extort versus the risk of crossing someone with real power. How much? Jason finally asked. Name your price for permanent termination of rights. Legal, binding, irreversible. Jason considered. 500,000. Done. But if you ever contact them again, if you ever try to claim any relationship with those girls, the deal is void and I come after everything you have. Understood? Jason nodded slowly. I'll need it in writing. My attorney will contact yours tomorrow. Now leave. After Jason left, Natalie sagged against the doorframe, all her fierce energy draining at once. You can't give him $500,000. I won't let you. It's nothing compared to what they're worth. Christopher pulled her close. And it guarantees he's gone forever. But Christopher, no, this isn't negotiable. That man doesn't get to hold you hostage. He doesn't get to threaten taking those girls from you. Whatever it costs to ensure their safety and your peace of mind, it's worth it. He held her tighter. Let me do this. Please. From the hallway came a small voice. Is that man going to take us away? Christopher and Natalie turned to find both girls standing there. Mia's face showing unusual fear, Maya clutching her stuffed unicorn with white knuckles. No, baby, Natalie said immediately, going to them. No one is taking you anywhere. But he said he's our real father. Mia's logical mind was trying to process impossible situations. Does that mean Daddy Christopher isn't our real father? Real isn't about biology, Christopher said, kneeling before them. Real is about showing up every day. Real is about being there when you're scared or sick or just need someone to help with homework. Real is about love, not genetics. And I love you both more than anything in this world. But what if the law says, Mia started. The law is going to say that man has no rights to you anymore. Christopher interrupted gently. That's being handled. You don't need to worry about it. Promise? Maya's voice was small. I promise. You're stuck with me forever. Both of you. Later that night, after the girls finally slept, both in Christopher's bed needing the reassurance of his presence, Christopher and Natalie sat in the living room processing everything. He knew about Maya's seizure, Natalie said quietly. He knew we moved. He's been watching us, building a case. What if there's more? What if he really tries for custody? He won't. The money guarantees it. And Patricia, my attorney, she's already drafting a termination of parental rights agreement so ironclad that no court in the country would overturn it. Christopher took Natalie's hand. But this raises something we need to discuss, about making our relationship legal. Natalie's eyes widened. Christopher, I'm not proposing, not yet, not like this. He squeezed her hand gently. But I need you to know that's where this is heading. When the time is right, when you're ready, I want to marry you. I want to legally adopt Mia and Maya. I want there to be no question, no legal vulnerability, no man like Jason who can show up and threaten everything. It's too fast. We've only been together 2 months. I know, which is why I'm not proposing now, but I'm telling you my intentions so you can think about it, so you know that this isn't temporary or conditional. This is forever, Natalie. For me, it's forever. She looked at him with tears streaming down her face. What if I'm not ready for forever? What if I'm still too scared? Then we wait. As long as you need. But while we wait, I'm still here, still showing up, still loving you and those girls with everything I have. He wiped her tears gently. You've been alone so long you've forgotten that being together means you get to be scared and still have someone catch you. Let me catch you. Natalie broke then, sobbing into his chest all the fear and exhaustion and desperate hope she'd been carrying. And Christopher held her, whispering promises into her hair, meaning every word. Because this was his family, his home, his future, and no biological father who'd abandoned them years ago was going to threaten that. Tomorrow he'd call Patricia and make sure Jason Mitchell disappeared from their lives permanently. Tomorrow he'd start the process of securing their future legally and irrevocably. But tonight, he'd just hold the woman he loved and listen to 2 little girls breathing softly in the next room, and know that he was exactly where he belonged. Spring came to Boston with sudden intensity, winter releasing its grip all at once. Cherry blossoms exploded across the common, and the brownstone's small backyard burst into unexpected color. Daffodils and tulips planted by previous owners creating a riot of yellows and reds that made Maya gasp with delight. 6 months had passed since Jason's ultimatum, since Christopher had written a check that made him $500,000 poorer and infinitely richer in peace of mind. The termination of parental rights had been finalized in February, with Jason signing documents that severed any legal connection to Mia and Maya. He'd disappeared back into whatever successful life he'd built, and Christopher had ensured through careful channels that the man would think twice before showing his face again. But the encounter had catalyzed something in Christopher. The realization of how legally vulnerable their family structure was, how easily it could be threatened by biological connections versus chosen ones. He'd spent months talking with Patricia about adoption procedures, legal requirements, the steps necessary to make his fatherhood official, You'll need Natalie's full consent, Patricia had explained, and the girls will need to be interviewed to ensure they understand and want the adoption. Given their age, the court will take their wishes into account. And then? And then they'll be legally yours. All the rights and responsibilities of biological parenthood. No one can contest it or threaten it. It was what Christopher wanted more than anything, but proposing adoption meant proposing marriage, and Natalie still hadn't fully accepted that he wasn't going to leave. She'd relaxed, invited him fully into their lives, let herself laugh more freely, even said, "I love you," occasionally when she thought he wasn't paying attention. But some core part of her remained braced for abandonment, which was why Christopher had planned today carefully. "Where are we going?" Mia asked from the back seat, bouncing with barely contained excitement. She was 7 now, birthday celebrated last month with 30 friends from school, a dramatic increase from the quiet cake-for-3 celebrations of her previous birthdays. "It's a surprise," Christopher said, catching Natalie's suspicious look from the passenger seat. "A good one, I promise." "The last surprise was my art show," Maya piped up, referring to the gallery exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts where 3 of her paintings had been displayed alongside adult artists. "This can't possibly top that." Christopher smiled but said nothing. Let her wonder. Let her. They drove north toward Salem, spring landscape rolling past, trees budding green, fields dotted with wildflowers, the promise of summer hanging in the warm air. After 40 minutes, Christopher turned onto a private road that led to the ocean. "The beach?" Natalie asked. "You brought us to the beach?" "Not just any beach." Christopher parked at the end of the road, where a modest but beautiful beach house sat overlooking the Atlantic. White clapboard siding, blue shutters, wrap-around porch with rocking chairs. Nothing ostentatious, just perfect. This beach. The girls tumbled out, racing toward the sand, their delighted shrieks echoing back. Natalie stood beside the car, staring at the house with an expression Christopher couldn't quite read. "What is this?" "Come inside, let me show you." The interior was flooded with light. Large windows facing the ocean, hardwood floors, open concept living area with a stone fireplace. 3 bedrooms upstairs, each with ocean views. A studio room on the main floor that would be perfect for Maya's art. A library nook where Mia could lose herself in books. A kitchen large enough for family dinners and homework sessions and all the messy reality of life together. "Christopher." Natalie's voice was shaking. "What did you do?" "I bought it. Last month. But I wanted to make sure you loved it before telling you." He turned to face her. "I know the brownstone is good. I know we're happy there. But I thought, maybe we need a place that's just ours. Not a rental, not a compromise. Ours. Somewhere the girls can grow up with sand between their toes and tide pools to explore and enough space to breathe." "You can't just buy a beach house without telling me." "I can, actually. But I'd rather you agree to make it our beach house. Together, legally." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "Which brings me to the real reason we're here." Natalie's eyes went wide. "Christopher, before you panic, let me explain. I know it's fast. I know you're still scared. I know that trusting someone enough to marry them feels impossible when you've been abandoned before." He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Elegant without being ostentatious, perfect for Natalie's practical nature. "But I also know that I've loved you since the day you crashed through that apartment door, terrified for your daughters. I know I want to spend every morning waking up beside you and every evening watching our girls grow. I know I want my name on their birth certificates and their school forms. I know I want forever, Natalie, with you, with them. With all the beautiful chaos that comes with being a family." Tears streamed down her face. "You don't have to marry me to adopt them. We could do one without the other. I don't want one without the other. I want everything. The legal commitment and the emotional one. I want to stand in front of everyone we know and promise to love you through whatever comes. I want Mia and Maya to see that commitment can be real, that men can stay, that families can be built on choice instead of just biology." He took her hands. "I want to marry you because you're the strongest, fiercest, most incredible person I've ever met. Because you taught me what matters. because coming home to you feels like breathing after holding my breath my whole life. I'm still scared, she whispered. I know. You can be scared and still say yes. You can be terrified and still take a leap. You can trust that I'll be there to catch you every single time. Outside, Mia and Maya's laughter drifted through open windows, the sound of them discovering shells and sea glass. Inside, Natalie looked at Christopher with her whole heart in her eyes, all her fear and hope tangled together. My daughters already call you Daddy, she finally said. They already think we're married. They ask me constantly when you're going to live with us forever. What do you tell them? I tell them soon, because I can't imagine our lives without you anymore. Even when I try, even when I'm scared, I can't picture it. You're woven into everything now. Is that a yes? She laughed through tears. That's a let me see the ring properly first. Christopher slipped it from the box, and even in his nervous state he caught her sharp intake of breath at the inscription inside the band. Chosen, not chance. It's perfect, she breathed. So is that a yes? That's an absolutely terrified but completely certain yes. She held out her left hand, and Christopher slid the ring on with hands that shook despite his usual steadiness. We should tell the girls, Christopher said. Let them be part of this. They walked out to the beach, finding Mia and Maya constructing an elaborate sandcastle complete with moat and towers. Both looked up as Christopher and Natalie approached, immediately sensing something important in their parents' expressions. We have news, Christopher said, kneeling in the sand beside them. Something we want to ask you both about. Is it bad news? Maya asked, worry creeping into her voice like that man coming back. No, sweetheart. Very good news. Your mom and I are getting married. For a moment, both girls just stared. Then Mia squealed, an uncharacteristically high-pitched sound of pure joy, and launched herself at Christopher. Maya followed immediately after, and all four of them tumbled into the sand in a laughing, crying, joyful pile. Does this mean you're our real dad now? Mia asked when they'd untangled. Like legally official? That's actually what I wanted to ask you about. Christopher sat up, brushing sand from his hair. After your mom and I get married, I want to adopt you. Both of you. That means I'd legally be your father. My name would go on your birth certificates. You'd be Mia and Maya Brennan if you want, or Brennan Walsh, or whatever combination makes you happy. But it would mean we're a family officially, not just in our hearts. Would we have to call you something different? Maya asked, picking at the hem of her dress nervously. Instead of Daddy? You'd call me exactly what you call me now. Nothing changes except the paperwork. Can we think about it? Mia asked with her characteristic seriousness. Of course, sweetheart. This is a big decision. Take all the time you... Okay, I thought about it, Mia interrupted. I want to be Mia Brennan. It sounds strong. Maya Brennan sounds like an artist name, Maya added thoughtfully. Like someone who could be famous, I want that too. Christopher laughed, relief and joy flooding through him. Then that's what we'll do. After the wedding, we'll start the adoption process, and in a few months we'll all have the same last name officially. When's the wedding? Mia demanded. Tomorrow? Not quite that fast, Natalie said, finding her voice finally. We need to plan a little. But soon, Christopher added. I don't want to wait too long either. They spent the afternoon at the beach, exploring tide pools and building increasingly elaborate sand structures. Christopher taught the girls to identify different types of shells. Natalie collected sea glass, pockets bulging with smooth green and blue fragments she planned to turn into art projects. As the sun began setting, painting the sky in oranges and purples that made Maya demand her sketch pad from the car, Christopher stood with Natalie watching their daughters play. I never thought I'd have this, Natalie said quietly. A partner who stayed, daughters who felt secure instead of scared. A future that felt like possibility instead of just survival. What changed? Marcus prayed you into existence, or the universe conspired, or Catherine was watching from wherever she is, and decided her girls deserved a miracle. Natalie leaned into Christopher's side. Or maybe it was just dumb luck that you answered your phone that day. Either way, I'm grateful. Not luck, Christopher said. Destiny has to be. Nothing else explains how perfectly you all fit into spaces in my life I didn't know were empty. They married in May. Small ceremony in the backyard of the beach house with only close friends and Marcus O'Brien, who cried through the entire event while insisting the ocean wind was making his eyes water. Mia and Maya were flower girls, wearing matching lavender dresses and carrying baskets of beach roses. They took their roles seriously, walking down the makeshift aisle with solemn concentration before breaking into giggles halfway through. Christopher's vows were simple. I promise to show up. Every day, every challenge, every joy. I promise to love your daughters as my own. I promise that when you're scared, I'll be steady. And I promise that this, us, them, this family, will always be my priority. Not my company, not my ambitions. You. Always you. Natalie's vows came through tears. I promise to trust you, even when it's hard, even when old fears try to convince me that people leave. I promise to let you love us without holding back. I promise to build this life with you instead of just surviving beside you. And I promise that these daughters of mine, of ours, will know what it means to have a father who chose them, who showed them that love is action, not just words. The adoption proceedings began in June. Christopher and Natalie met with social workers who interviewed them, observed their family dynamic, verified that the girls understood and wanted the adoption. Mia gave detailed explanations of family structures and legal definitions until the social worker laughingly said she was convinced. Maya drew a family portrait and presented it formally, pointing out that Christopher was already drawn bigger than Jason had ever been in her memory, because Daddy takes up more space in our hearts. In August, 1 year after Christopher had first answered that terrified phone call, they stood before a judge who'd reviewed their case with obvious pleasure. It's rare, the judge said, looking at Christopher, to see someone choose fatherhood so completely. Most adoption cases involve step-parents who've known the children for years. You've known Mia and Maya for barely over a year. Why are you so certain? Christopher looked at his daughters, 7 years old now, Mia reading a book about quantum physics, Maya sketching the courtroom with quick, confident strokes. Because the length of time you know someone doesn't determine how much they matter. These girls became mine the moment I answered a terrified phone call and realized I'd do anything to keep them safe. Every day since has just confirmed what I knew then. They're my daughters in every way that counts. Biology is just genetics. Family is choice. The judge smiled. Well said. Adoption granted. Congratulations, Brennan family. That night, they celebrated with pizza, tradition from their earliest days together. Christopher watched Mia and Maya laughing over some inside joke, Natalie comfortable and content in a way she'd never been before, and felt overwhelming gratitude for a mysterious phone number and a man named Marcus who'd believed in divine intervention. What are you thinking? Natalie asked, catching him lost in thought. That a year ago I was sitting in an office reviewing acquisition reports and feeling like I'd accomplished everything important, and I'd accomplished nothing that mattered. And now? Now I've accomplished the only thing that ever mattered. I have a family. I have you. I have daughters who call me Daddy and mean it. I have a home instead of just an expensive address. He pulled her close. I have everything. Mia looked up from her book. Daddy, can we go to the beach house this weekend? I want to show you the tide pool ecosystem I've been studying. Of course, sweetheart. And can I bring my new art supplies? Maya added. I want to paint the sunrise. Absolutely, we'll wake up early. Later, after the girls were asleep, Christopher stood in their bedroom doorway watching them. Mia sprawled across her bed with a book still clutched in one hand. Maya curled around her stuffed unicorn, both of them peaceful and secure in ways they'd never been in apartment 3B. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Catherine would be so proud. You became exactly what she prayed for, someone who stayed. Christopher typed back, thank you for connecting us, for believing it could work. Marcus's response came quickly. I didn't connect you. I just removed the obstacles. You and Natalie and those girls. You were always meant to find each other. I just cleared the path. Maybe that was true. Maybe destiny required a little help sometimes. Maybe prayers got answered through human intervention and mysterious phone numbers and repair shops in Southie, where old Irishmen understood that sometimes families needed to be assembled from broken pieces. Christopher didn't know, didn't really care to analyze it too deeply. All he knew was that answering an unknown phone call on a September afternoon had changed everything, had transformed him from a successful man into a complete one, had given him purpose beyond profit margins and meaning beyond achievement, had given him a family. Natalie appeared beside him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "They're beautiful when they sleep. They're beautiful always. Thank you," she whispered, "for staying, for keeping your promises, for being exactly what they needed. What we all needed," Christopher corrected. "This goes both ways, Natalie. You saved me as much as I helped you, maybe more. Then I guess we saved each other." "I guess we did." They stood together in the doorway, watching their daughters sleep, and Christopher thought about that terrified little girl's voice on his phone. "Daddy, we just wanted leftovers." He'd driven across the city for children he'd never met because something inside him couldn't not respond, couldn't let them face their crisis alone. And that choice, that moment of deciding to show up, had led to everything else, to love and family and belonging, to becoming someone's daddy in every way that mattered, to finally finding home. "Come to bed," Natalie said softly, pulling him away from their daughter's room. "Tomorrow's another day of this beautiful chaos." "I can't wait," Christopher said. And he meant it, because chaos with them was better than order without them. Noise and mess and unexpected emergencies were better than silence and perfection. Showing up every day for homework and art projects and bedtime stories was better than any boardroom victory. This was success. This was achievement. This was everything. And it had started with a phone call and 3 simple words. "Please, Daddy, come." He'd come. He'd stayed. And he'd never regret either choice. Not for a single moment. Not ever.